think I've said previously that the environment from a tax point of view at the moment is about as uncertain as I think I can ever remember it. Generally, going into a budget, you've got a reasonable idea of the areas that are going to come under scrutiny and potential changes that are coming. You don't know for definite, but you kind of get a sense for what areas the government is focusing on. In a month away from the budget on the 26th of November, I think it's probably fair to say that there's more uncertainty now, and I really don't have a clear view. So Lee wanted me to do some predictions on what was going to be in the budget, and I flatly refused because I've got no idea. But I think there are a couple of measures that I would like to see in the budget, things that changes that I think would make a very big difference. Not just in terms of financial terms, but also just in terms of the general kind of feeling around the country. So I think the big one for me is very much around the inheritance tax changes that were announced last year, which has caused untold heartache, anxiety for people who are potentially affected by them, even frankly for people who probably won't be affected by them, but don't really understand how they're going to apply to them. I think the same objectives that the government seem to have, which is to prevent people effectively using the agricultural relief and the business property relief that are available in order to artificially reduce their inheritance tax bills. I think they could be addressed in a much simpler way. I think the thresholds that they've set of £1 million per person, is not a huge amount of money. It sounds like a lot of money, but when you're a business owner or a farmer, it doesn't take much to actually have something that's worth well over £1 million and suddenly being exposed to inheritance tax on that. So the simplest measure they could do is effectively to increase that threshold to say 5 million per person, and that would take out the vast majority of small businesses, a large proportion of the farms that are potentially affected by these changes, and just make, really target those measures at the people where, there is that perhaps wealth in order to be able to fund that. It's not a perfect measure, but in terms of the benefit that the people who would be, affected by it, I think it would be, disproportionate to the actual cost of that measure to the government. I think the couple of other things I'd like to see the government remove are really some of the kind of the wrinkles in the tax system, which artificially drive particularly business owners to kind of set their income levels at certain amounts. So a big hobby horse of mine is the fact that when your income exceeds £100,000, you suddenly start to lose your tax-free personal allowance, which can mean when you go for every £2 that you earn over that level, you lose £1 of your personal allowance. The effect of that is that if you're a salaried individual, you're paying 60% tax on your income between £100,000 and £125,000, which I struggle to see how that can be fair in any sort of context. And it does mean that we see people artificially managing their income to make sure that they stay below that level. There's also things like the higher rate child benefit charge, which again, although the measures were softened, it still catches people out all the time. And really, again, just having a higher threshold where the child benefit charge it starts to get phased out, I think would be a significant improvement to the tax system, if not actually doing away with the whole thing altogether. And I think it's just these little wrinkles which have really been sticking plasters that have been put in place over the years in the tax system to solve a perceived issue without really thought about the wider implications of it. Somebody really needs to just go through the whole system and start to carve out and get rid of some of these wrinkles, because what people want more than anything in a tax system is fairness, and I think there's a lot of perceived unfairness in the tax system at the moment. I think dealing with these sort of cliff edges that really drive people to sort of behave in different ways than you might expect them to would be a really good start.